Should you be concerned about Project 2025 and the Christian Nationalists and Sunday laws? Find out today on The Prophetic Eye. Project 2025, it's a new initiative that, according to them, looks to build for a conservative victory through policy, personnel, and training. This project is in direct response to what many see as an increasingly radicalized political left. And ironically, it seems like the authors of Project 2025 are creating an increasingly radicalized political right in response. According to the Project 2025 website, the actions of liberal politicians in Washington have created a desperate need and a unique opportunity for conservatives to start undoing the damage that the left has wrought and build a better country for all Americans in 2025. It is not enough for conservatives to win elections. If we're going to rescue the country from the grip of the radical left, we need both a governing agenda and the right people in place, ready to carry this agenda out on day one of the next conservative administration. This movement involves organizations that refer to themselves as the post-liberals, Christian patriots, or the common good conservatives that we talked about in a previous episode of The Prophetic Eye, and you might want to check that one out. According to MSNBC.com, the purpose of the Rights Project 2025 is to make faith the government's job. Well, I agree with that sentiment, as that's just another way of saying that they want to create a union of church and state. Or, in other words, what Revelation 13 refers to as the image to the beast. It's evident that the post-liberals, the Christian patriots, the common good conservatives, whatever they want to be called, it's obvious that they are fighting to take the country back from the immoral left. And this should come as no surprise at all as it relates to end-time prophecy. In the book The Great Controversy, we find a description of the battle between the right and the left. On page 587, it says, "This very class put forth the claim that the fast-spreading corruption is largely attributable to the desecration of the so-called Christian Sabbath, and that the enforcement of Sunday observance would greatly improve the morals of society." Do you see it? This statement from over 130 years ago highlights the fight of Christian nationalists to improve the morals of society and to remove corruption. And the so-called Christian Sabbath, better known as the Sunday Sabbath, is seen as a major solution to this problem. And this is the exact sentiment that has been expressed by many Christians. Take a look for yourself.
As I understand Christian nationalism, it is that the idea that your nation self-identifies, understands itself as Christian, and they would pursue their good as Christians, which would include policies that would kind of encourage people to attend church, encourage people to seek out essentially the means of grace. So this would include things like, I think, Sabbath laws, which would on Sundays would essentially, we can talk about this more, but it essentially kind of close down businesses and of an emergency and essential services. And that would be a way of not forcing people to attend church or do any sort of worship, but it would be kind of a reminder for the people that this is what this day is for, and you should do it. Again, this was something that was common in the past within this country to have that have Sabbath laws. Is basically that what you're doing is it's a de facto privileging of Christianity, because which religion has the Sabbath on Sunday? Well, it's Christianity, and so you're not doing it on Saturday. You're not doing it. So you're explicitly saying this is a Christian land, and we're gonna all force you to obey some sort of Christian. And so that's the best critique. And I would just say, that's exactly what it does.
This article from MSNBC.com also highlights the focus on observance of the so-called Christian Sabbath. It says, Berry worries that God ordained the Sabbath as a day of rest, and until very recently, the Judeo-Christian tradition sought to honor that mandate by moral and legal regulation of work on that day, and blames consumerism and secularism for the decline in Sabbath observance. Notice what they're talking about: Sabbath or Sunday rest, the loss of morality. It's clear to me that prophecy is being fulfilled right before our eyes, which is why I was so confused by a statement that I came across online. It says, the expectation that in the end of time a universal Sunday law will be enforced by the civil authorities upon the insistence of the public and at the demand of the apostate churches seems to be more and more unrealistic. This statement was from an article posted on August 21st, 2023, and its purpose is to challenge the concept of a Sunday law as it relates to the Adventist interpretation of Revelation 13. If you don't know the Adventist interpretation of this chapter, it's very simple, and it goes like this. Number 1, it identifies the first beast of Revelation 13 as the papacy. And number 2, it identifies the second beast of Revelation 13 as the United States, as a Christian nation that leads out in enforcing something called the mark of the beast. And what I believe to be the correct interpretation of the mark of the beast is the so-called change of the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday, which, by the way, the Catholic Church openly says is their mark of authority. The Bible teaches that this changed day of worship will eventually be enforced, and those who hold to the true Sabbath will be persecuted, just as it was during the Dark Ages. Adventists have been talking about what we're seeing right now in efforts like Project 2025 for over 150 years as something that is going to happen someday. And obviously, as of today, while I'm recording this, that day has not yet come. But the question that begs to be answered is, are we seeing the beginning stages of this movement to legislate a day of worship? Many don't think so, as you can see from this other statement that says, the notion that Seventh-day Adventists will be singled out for persecution for keeping the Sabbath because Sunday laws will have made it illegal to go to church on Saturday is an invention of Ellen White, in particular, her book, The Great Controversy. And there it is. Some think that this is all fiction, an invention of Ellen White. I've seen this sentiment over and over again, as the concept of people in our postmodern world seeking Sunday legislation is ridiculous to many. But as you're about to see, it's not ridiculous anymore. Project 2025 recently released a 920-page document that outlines their goals for 2025. This document, entitled Mandate for Leadership, was produced by a group of largely Christian conservatives that have put aside their differences and have come together for a common goal. Now, pay attention to the words and sentiments that you're about to see in this video clip. And then I'm going to read a statement from The Great Controversy, the same book that some people think is fiction.
We are bringing this out before the primaries to bring the candidates to our point of view. And we're standing at the ready to train them up and give them policy expertise.
And that's kind of where I hang my think tank hat. And I can attest to to use Ed's word from earlier today, the ecumenical nature across the conservative movement of this whole effort. And that only makes it stronger. It really does. It's a very powerful way to see a bunch of individualists and organizations that value individual liberty set aside their own interests to work just purely on behalf of good conservative policy has produced a really outstanding product.
You got 50 different conservative organizations have contributed to this. That's what makes this a strong product. No presidential campaign or president is going to be able to ignore it. This is going to give them the tools to really be successful.
I would say, this has never happened in our movement. We've never had this coming together of the entire movement to prepare for one event, day one, January 20th. And what brings all these organizations together? Our common theme is to take down the administrative state, the bureaucracy.
Notice what they had to say. Bring the candidates to our point of view, train them up and give them policy expertise. The ecumenical nature across the conservative movement. Set aside their own interests. No president is going to be able to ignore it. Never happened before in our movement. Our common theme is to take down the administrative state and the bureaucracy. And finally, don't miss this. Number 1, the document is named Mandate for Leadership, and another word for mandate is demands. This idea of demands and the things that were stated in that video are directly in line with The Great Controversy, page 592, which says, the dignitaries of church and state will unite to bribe, persuade, or compel all classes to honor the Sunday. The lack of divine authority will be supplied by oppressive enactments. Political corruption is destroying love of justice and regard for truth. And even in free America, rulers and legislators, in order to secure public favor, will yield to the popular demand for a law enforcing Sunday observance. I hope you're picking up what I'm laying down. And here's another point. This coming together of Christians reflects another statement from The Great Controversy, which says, when the leading churches of the United States, uniting upon such points of doctrine as are held by them in common, shall influence the state to enforce their decrees and to sustain their institutions, then Protestant America will have formed an image of the Roman hierarchy, and the infliction of civil penalties upon dissenters will inevitably result. What we see happening right now is mirroring exactly what we see in the Great Controversy, with the demands or the mandates in mind, and the coming together in mind, coming together on points held in common, putting aside differences. But what about Sabbath observance? Take a look at this section from the 2025 document related to Sabbath rest. It says, Congress should encourage communal rest by amending the Fair Labor Standards Act to require that workers be paid time and a half for hours worked on the Sabbath. That day would default to Sunday. The goal here is to create a scenario in which people are encouraged to enjoy communal rest, with the day defaulting to Sunday. And that word communal means shared by all members of a community for common use. Basically, they're trying to use the government to strong-arm employers into giving people the opportunity for Sunday rest. And really the goal is for Sunday worship, because obviously there is a religious component to these laws that they're trying to pass. This type of communal rest is exactly what took place in the early stages of Christianity, where the change of the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday was promoted. The image to the beast is being formed, and in order to understand how it's going to happen, we need to understand how the first beast was formed and how Sunday observance began, and this is how it happened. In the early part of the 4th century, the Emperor Constantine issued a decree making Sunday a public festival throughout the Roman Empire. So here we see that it started with a government mandate making Sunday a day of communal enjoyment. It goes on to say, vast councils were held from time to time in which the dignitaries of the church were convened from all around the world. In nearly every council, the Sabbath, which God had instituted, was pressed down a little lower, while the Sunday was correspondingly exalted. Thus, the pagan festival came finally to be honored as a divine institution, while the Bible Sabbath was pronounced a relic of Judaism, and its observers were declared to be accursed. You see, you need to understand that this was a process that started with the promotion of Sunday rest, and eventually the seventh-day Sabbath became accursed. It started out innocently. However, I want you to keep in mind that what seems initially innocent always ends up in force or coercion. The road to persecution is paved with beautiful attractions. It's clear that there is a desire for Sunday to be the default day or the special day, and it's becoming clearer that the Adventist interpretation of Revelation 13 is solid and firmly grounded in prophetic reality. The Christian nationalists are on the rise, and they're actively seeking to place Sunday laws on the agenda for the future of America as they seek to combat the rise of immorality in this country. There are some that believe that this is much ado about nothing. Nothing to see here, folks. This would never happen in America. But for those of you who have the prophetic eye, you can see it clearly. And as we see these discussions increasing, it is so important that we take notice and use our voice and influence to reject and denounce the policies of religious zealots for as long as possible. And this must be done in a Christ-like manner that echoes the words of Jesus that his kingdom is not of this world. There's one more thing I really need you to see. It relates to a verse that's very important to me, which is the holding of the winds described in Revelation chapter 7. It says, "It was God that restrained the powers, and that he gave his angels charge over things on the earth, and that the 4 angels had power from God to hold the 4 winds, and that they were about to let them go. And while their hands were loosening, and the 4 winds were about to blow, the merciful eye of Jesus gazed on the remnant that were not sealed. Then he raised his hands to the Father and pleaded with them that he had spilled his blood for them. Then another angel was commissioned to fly swiftly to the 4 angels and bid them hold until the servants of God were sealed with the seal of the living God in their foreheads." As he promised, God has held the winds for over 130 years. And now it seems to me that the winds are increasingly being let go. I have no idea exactly when it will be. I have no idea how long it will be, but I do know that just as the Bible has predicted, it will be. And I know that God wants you and I to have his character so that you can be sealed and so that I can be sealed. Today, I want to invite you to go to God. Place your faith firmly in Christ And his promise is that you can have the assurance of salvation today. And he promises to be with all of us as we seek to remain faithful to him. God bless, and please remember to keep the prophetic eye.